Welcome to our deep dive, and it feels like we're at a really interesting point with India right now.
Yeah, definitely. A lot going on, a lot to unpack from the looks of these sources.
We're seeing everything from space exploration to defense deals to a whole new Make in India campaign.
It's almost like they're trying to hit fast forward on becoming a global powerhouse.
And it's working to some degree, but then you also see these underlying tensions, like with the U.S. and trade and
Right, and it's not all just external either. They've got their own internal challenges to grapple with.
Okay, so maybe let's start with this whole Make in India thing, because Modi's using the slogan "Make India Great Again." It's like straight out of the Trump playbook.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bold move, and it seems to be resonating with a certain segment of the population.
But what do you think it really signals about his vision for India? I mean, is it just about economics, or is there something more there?
Well, if you look at the sources, you see this real push for self-reliance, boosting domestic manufacturing, reducing reliance on imports.
So less made in China, more made in India.
Exactly, but the question is, how will this impact their relationship with other countries? It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, because you've got the U.S.-India relationship, which always seems to be teetering between cooperation and tension.
Yeah, and the sources really highlight that, you've got Modi and Trump meeting, you've got talk of military sales, potential oil and gas deals.
But then there's this elephant in the room, which is trade.
Right, the U.S. has been pretty critical of India's trade practices for a while now, pointing to the trade deficit and accusing them of unfair market access.
So is this meeting just a temporary truce, or is there a genuine shift happening?
It's hard to say for sure. I mean, it's with a high-stakes game of chess right now where both sides are trying to get the best deal.
And a lot of businesses are watching this very closely, trying to figure out where to place their bets.
Oh, absolutely. This could have huge implications for the global economy.
Okay, but let's shift gears for a second and talk about something completely different. This new streaming giant, JioHotstar.
Oh, yeah, it's like they came out of nowhere and suddenly they're giving Netflix a run for its money.
What's really fascinating to me is that they're not just copying the Netflix model. They're really catering to Indian audiences with Bollywood films, regional content, live cricket matches.
Right, and their pricing is incredibly aggressive. I mean, you can get a subscription for less than $2 a month.
So do you think they have the potential to actually dethrone Netflix?
Well, they certainly have the numbers and the momentum, but it's still early days. It'll be interesting to see how they evolve.
All right, so from streaming wars to the actual space race, because India's Gaganyaan human spaceflight mission is getting a huge budget boost.
Yeah, they're not messing around. They're talking about a national space station, a crewed lunar mission. It's incredibly ambitious.
I mean, do you think this signals a new era of space exploration, where it's not just about national prestige, but about economic opportunities, maybe even finding solutions to global challenges?
I think you're onto something there. It's becoming more and more clear that space is going to play a huge role in our future, and India wants to be a part of that.
Now, while we're on the topic of India pushing boundaries, we have to talk about this quick commerce boom.
Yeah, the promise of 10-minute deliveries is definitely enticing, but is it sustainable?
It feels like a bit of a bubble right now with all this venture capital pouring in.
Exactly, and there are concerns about labor practices, the environmental impact. It's a model that's still being tested.
So is it a revolution or a recipe for disaster? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, for sure.
Now let's move to something a little bit darker, these bribery allegations against Gautam Adani.
Yeah, this is a story that could have major ramifications. It involves claims of Adani paying substantial bribes to secure favorable contracts.
And the fact that Modi seemed to sidestep questions about it during his U.S. visit just adds another layer of intrigue.
It definitely raises questions about transparency and accountability.
It's like something out of a political thriller.
We'll have to see how this one unfolds, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, so to wrap up this whirlwind tour of India's current landscape, we need to talk about their growing role as a defense exporter. I mean, this deal to sell Akash missiles to the Philippines is a big deal, right?
It's a huge development. It signals that India is serious about becoming a major player in the global arms market.
And it comes at a time when tensions are rising in the Indo-Pacific region, particularly with China.
Exactly. This could have major geopolitical implications.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground, and it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
It's incredible how much is happening in India right now. It's a nation that's full of contradictions and complexities, but that's what makes it so fascinating.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to digest, so we'll pick up this conversation in part 2 of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it really is amazing how much is going on in India. Like, internally, they're dealing with all these changes, and at the same time, they're making these big power moves globally.
Right, and it all kind of ties together in a way. Like remember we were talking about JioHotstar?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they just announced they're moving away from free streaming for IPL cricket matches.
Oh, really? Wow, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's going to be a hybrid model, so some matches will be free, but you'll need a subscription for full access.
That's interesting. I wonder if that signals a broader shift away from free content in India. I mean, cricket is huge there. It's like a national obsession.
It could be. They might be trying to strike a balance, between reaching a wide audience and actually making money.
Yeah, it's got to be tough for them to make those decisions.
It is. It's a challenge for any streaming platform these days.
Okay, so speaking of big decisions, did you see that Modi met with Elon Musk?
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating. Two of the biggest innovator personalities just hanging out.
It's like a meeting of the minds, right? I mean, they were talking about everything from space exploration to electric vehicles to even Starlink.
Yeah, that Starlink thing could be a game changer for India. Imagine bringing high-speed internet to all those rural areas.
That's what I was thinking. It could really help bridge the digital divide.
But of course, there are also concerns about regulation and how it might impact India's domestic satellite industry.
Right. Every move has its ripple effects.
Exactly. And speaking of ripple effects, let's go back to India's role as a defense exporter for a second.
Oh, yeah, the Akash missile deal with the Philippines.
That's just one example of how India is asserting itself in the region, and it's happening at a time when China is also becoming more assertive.
So it's like a bit of a power struggle going on there.
You could say that, and it's making other countries in the region a little bit nervous.
Right. They're looking for allies, and India's stepping up.
Exactly. It's a very delicate situation.
So we've got space exploration, we've got streaming wars, we've got this dance between the U.S. and India, and then you've got China looming in the background. It's a lot.
It is. It's a very complex geopolitical landscape.
But wait, before we move on completely, we can't forget about those bribery allegations against Adani.
Oh, you're right. That's a story that we need to circle back to.
I mean, it kind of slipped my mind with all the other stuff we've been talking about, but it's potentially a huge deal.
It is. And the fact that Modi kind of dodged the question during his U.S. visit is a little bit concerning.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what's really going on.
Yeah, it does. It raises questions about transparency and accountability.
Like, is there something they're trying to hide, or is there a legitimate reason for being so tight-lipped?
We don't know yet, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here again, and it's amazing how much is happening in India right now. But it feels like we're just getting started.
It does feel that way. There's so much more to explore and discuss.
Well, we'll have to save that for next time then, because we're running out of time on this part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our India deep dive, and I got to say, my head's kind of spinning from all the stuff we've talked about.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, hasn't it? I mean, we've gone from space to streaming wars to trade deals to bribery scandals.
It's almost like India is trying to do everything at once and on a massive scale.
They really are. And what strikes me is that there's this real tension between the India of the past and the India they're trying to become.
Yeah, it's like they're sprinting towards the future, but they're still carrying all this baggage from the past.
Exactly. And it's fascinating to watch how that plays out, in their economic policies, their foreign policy, even their social dynamics.
So with all that in mind, do you think they'll actually achieve this goal of becoming a global superpower? I mean, it's a pretty ambitious goal.
It is ambitious, but, they definitely have the potential, the population, the resources, the talent.
But it takes more than that, right? I mean, look at a country like Russia. They have a lot of those things too, but...
Right. It's not just about having the resources. It's about how you use them. It's about building relationships. It's about soft power.
Soft power, yeah, like cultural influence, stuff like that.
Exactly. It's about getting other countries to want to work with you, to see you as a leader.
Okay, so what should I be looking for to see if India is actually on the path to superpowerdom?
Well, I think the most important thing is to pay attention to the nuances. Don't just buy into the simplistic narratives about India either being this rising star or this country that's stuck in the past.
So look beyond the headlines, basically.
Exactly. Look at how they're dealing with their internal challenges, poverty, inequality, political polarization.
And how they're navigating their relationships with other countries.
Right. Especially the U.S. and China. Those are the two big ones to watch.
And of course, their technological advancements, they're making huge strides in space exploration, renewable energy, all sorts of fields.
Right. They're really pushing the boundaries in a lot of ways.
It's a lot to keep track of, but it's definitely fascinating.
It is. And I think the biggest takeaway is that India's story is far from over. It's just getting started.
Yeah, and the choices they make are going to have a huge impact on the rest of the world.
No doubt about it. So buckle up because it's going to be a wild ride.
Well, on that note, I think we've given our listeners plenty to think about for now.
We have, and I'm sure we'll be revisiting India many times in the future.
Absolutely. It's a country that just keeps on giving. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.